Hey guys, Martial Apologist here again. And this video is going to be about, I made a video about the bad atheist arguments, ones that they really should just stop doing. That a lot of them don't, but a lot of them do. I don't really have so much bad Christian arguments in mind for this, as I have just bad mindsets that a lot of Christians have. And it shows up in their arguments in different kinds of ways. It's not all Christians, again, but it's things that exist, and it really bugs me, and they need to stop. I'm going to dive right into the first one, which is probably one of the bigger ones, if not the biggest issue that a lot of people have that really helps out atheists a lot in their arguments against Christianity. And that's the idea that if it can be scientifically understood or measured in any way, if it can be explained through natural phenomenon, if it can be explained through history, just a circumstantial thing of history, then therefore it couldn't be God. Now, they don't say this outright, but they do take the attitude of it in ways of believing something like, let's just kind of hypothetically, a biblical prophet says that, Jerusalem's going to be sacked and burned to the ground, when this king dies, and then let's just say that happens. Well, if scholars and historians and whatever say, that happened because of these different political things that were going on at the time, and this, that, and the other, and then that led to this happening, or something a little less tangible from the human, point of view of, somebody says, there's going to be this earthquake and it's going to destroy a city, and then scientists come along and say, that wasn't God, that was just plate tectonics, and this, that, and the other. As much as atheists should probably stop using the fact that we can scientifically measure something happening as proof that it couldn't be God, Christians really need to stop saying that because we can measure the things, it's proof that it wasn't God. This shows up in the way of not so much denying that God did it, so much as denying that it happened without a miraculous direct cause. And to be honest, I don't really think that this shows up any more clearly than the notion most Christians have of how we got the Bible. I actually know some that, if you tell them, the revelation of Scripture is, kind of a product of the person at the time. It is God, His Spirit speaking through the writer of the Bible. Nonetheless, it is also the life of that person was set up in such a way that God used them in the context of their time, in their culture, in their circumstance, to produce the work that they did, one way or the other, and then that whatever they happened whatever they were writing down at the time or passing down through oral tradition, whichever the case may be, and there's lots of different authors, so they did it different ways, that was recognized to have been from God through that person, through the natural course of their life. There's no record or reason to think at any point that any of the Old Testament prophets or any of the New Testament authors at any point went into a trance-like state and just started writing down stuff without even knowing what it was, and then they woke up and were, Scripture! I wrote the Bible! Who knew? That never happened. There's no recording of that. Be quiet, Katie. Secondly, and kind of along the same lines, is the Christian attitude towards scholarship. I have personally known way more, not a huge number, but way more Christians than I would care to, name or number, who, even if you are supporting their position, on something. If you say, yeah, actually, according to thus and such scholars, yeah, you're right, or this neat factoid that doesn't dismiss any part of your religion at all, and they more or less just reply, well, scholars say, whatever. Like, well, look, I know a lot of scholars say whatever, because there's a lot of biased scholarship in the world. There's a lot of people out there that they get their master's degree, they get their PhD, they get their whatever, they get their doctorate in whatever field it is they're going to get, and they do that because they want to, they want to make money. They get their credentials so that they can write whatever they got to write so that they can make money. I understand that those people exist. If you know anybody that went through seminary school, odds are you know somebody who knew somebody who admitted to going to seminary for no reason other than to make money. They didn't care if it was true or not. By the way, that happens in secular things too. They don't care about the thing they're actually learning. They're just doing it so that they can have a job, or perhaps write a best-selling book about how some scandal or other is going on. I understand that happens. Most of the time, even when it's stuff that I don't agree with at all, and it's scholarship that I don't like, I don't just dismiss it out of hand because, it's liberal scholarship. Well, no, there's probably something to it. Now, they may have come to the wrong conclusions, but odds are their evidence is probably pretty sound. They just may realistically have a very different worldview. And yeah, sometimes they do presuppose things like, miracles just cannot happen and God cannot exist. So everything in scholarship has to be, filtered through that lens. And then there are other guys that say virtually everything. Like, search of confirmation bias. That's my whole job. And they're both doing the same thing. They're looking for they're just sitting there wallowing in their own confirmation bias. But there are some legit people who sometimes just have some soft-spoken differences of opinion on these matters of religion and history. And that's okay. And just because they may say a thing or two here and there that you don't like, that doesn't mean you should just dismiss it out of hand. In point of fact, you should probably read them all the more carefully. Because odds are you're probably going to find something. If you read Ehrman's, popular works, you're probably not going to like very much of it at all as a Christian. If you read his scholarly works, there's actually some pretty good stuff in there from everything that I've been told. Because the scholarly works don't contain any of his leaps to conclusions that the evidence doesn't really directly support. His popular works are where that's found. And that's because his popular works don't have to be peer-reviewed. His scholarship stuff does. And that's a whole other thing. So stop it. Stop dismissing science and scientists and scholars in various fields, whether it be archaeology or, textual criticism. I hate it when people dismiss textual criticism. Don't get me wrong, higher criticism, it has its problems. At this point, it's almost a straight-up social science more than it is anything else. And I have very little respect for social scientists. The idea that they go, well, we don't have any manuscripts at all that read differently on this point in this verse, but we're pretty sure that you could read something else, and this is an interpolation of something else. This is a later edition. Well, no, if you don't have a manuscript that says that, you don't have anything. You have guesswork. You might have very well-educated guesswork, but you have guesswork. But the guys that do textual criticism, they actually, it's a little bit of guesswork, but it's an educated guess. It's a very well-educated guess. It's an extraordinarily informed opinion. And, it doesn't exist in a vacuum for no good reason. So, stop dismissing what these guys have to say. You might learn something. There are actually a good number of archaeologists, a good number of pathologist, a good number of, various language experts in the world who either are believers or at the very least can corroborate, even though they don't believe the whole story, can corroborate bits and pieces of things in the Bible and whatnot. And, that's worth something. They're not gonna be able to corroborate something like, yeah, Jesus healed this blind man. We know that because whatever. That's not going to happen, all right? You're never going to get anything that concrete out of anybody. And you shouldn't expect to, right? But, the idea that, because they're not doing that, you should just dismiss all of them out of hand because reasons. Because it's 2017, because it's the current year, Justin Trudeau, whatever. This just is the way things ought to be. So don't do that. Seriously. Stop dismissing, intelligent, educated people just because you don't always like everything they have to say. I don't always like everything that preachers say, but that doesn't mean I'm going to, you can't trust preachers. Because that's basically the attitude you have, and you should knock it off. Have a good one.